Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
The easiest reason of why we should hire one, that idea of creating more space, is stay in your zone of genius and do what you're best at. And that also frees up the space to add more joy to your life. If you're not fighting MailChimp for 4 hours to send one email that my team can get done in 15 minutes, you have more time to do the things that you love. Additionally, this could be more space in your budget, right? That's kind of sounding conflicting because you're like, well, I'm paying for a virtual assistant, but it frees up space in your budget because you actually make more money. You can focus on income producing activities.
You're listening to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a coach certified in time and stress management, helping clients make space for what matters most in their lives. Join me each episode and we'll talk about decluttering, stress management, habits, personalized productivity, gratitude, and so much more. I understand the overwhelm of life because I'm a wife, mom to kids and cats, and a former caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. If you've thought about hiring a VA but haven't gone through with it, or tried to work with one with less than stellar results, and you're wondering why you're struggling, today's episode is definitely worth a listen. Welcome to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and today I welcome Liz August back to the show. You may remember her from my 100th episode as she interviewed me, and she also joined me a while back for episode 18, Decluttering Through Delegation, that touched upon why we would want to delegate tasks. Today, we take the delegation conversation further. Liz August is an online business manager and tech strategist. She owns Simplify, an outsourcing team for heart-centered and soulful fempreneurs stuck between ideas and implementation. She simplifies scaling your business no matter what stage you're in and supports you in streamlining your strategy. Her team then uses that strategy to integrate and optimize your tech so you can work in your zone of genius. When she's not simplifying businesses, Liz runs Netflix marathons and snuggles with her husband, daughter, and schnauzer. When you know it's time to outsource, it can be a challenge for many reasons. So what makes the difference between it working well or not? What makes it a struggle, and how can you move past that? Besides finding the right person to work with, compatibility is critical. And working through mindset, there's a key part that we're highlighting today. It has to do with what you're asking them to do for you that makes the difference between paying someone to do your busy work versus leveraging expertise to further your goals. Liz helps us understand what that involves. We discuss what a VA is, why you want to hire one, what objections and mindset blocks she sees most often, and the number one thing you need to ensure you receive the efficiency you desired. She also leaves us with an effective and easy first step to do before you outsource your work. No matter where you are in this process, it's essential to declutter and simplify first. You need to have solid systems in place to support outsourcing. I encourage you to check out episode 69, Tackle Your To-Do List in 4 Simple Steps. And if you want to assess where you are with your systems, let's talk, because that's what I do. You can book a free connection and assessment call with me at positivelyproductive.com/call. Welcome, Liz August, to the Positively Living Podcast, or should I say, welcome back.
Welcome back.
I'm so excited to have you back. You were such a delight for my 100th episode, and I'm so grateful for you for so many reasons. But today we're going to dig into your specialty.
Yes.
But before we do, would you please tell us a bit about who you are, who you help, and what lights you up?
Okay, I am Liz August. I am an online business manager and a tech strategist. And I own a business called Simplify, which is part me doing business strategy, and the other part is my outsourcing team. And we help heart-centered and soulful fempreneurs who are stuck between ideas and implementation. So anyone who identifies as a heart-centered and soulful entrepreneur with an online business often has huge ideas and needs a little bit of help getting those ideas out into the world. And we do that by specializing in technology. So websites, social media, client relationship management, email, software, all of that stuff.
Yeah, all the tech stuff. And I know too that when I'm working with clients, so the first thing we do, of course, is we're looking at the to-dos, we're looking at the plans, the goals, the dreams, we're trying to reconcile all of that and trying to avoid the burnout, but also live in that wonderful creative energy. And I know we have such similar clients in that regard. And at some point, we do the very best we can to declutter, to limit, to simplify. But as you grow and as you scale, there are going to be things that you're going to need to do. And then that's where we get into delegation. And you were on my podcast for delegation as a kind of decluttering, which I love. I love to think of it that way. And that's still part of what you do. But the thing is, it's not just about, well, let me take that and do that for you. Because I know that when it comes to delegation, one of the scariest things that can happen, and I protect my clients from this, is don't pay someone else to do your busy work. We need to do this strategically and intentionally. And that's a big part of what you do. It's why you're a tech strategist and not simply, hey, someone you can pass your work to.
Yes. I like to always kind of use the metaphor of having a house cleaner. So my house cleaner is an angel, and I have her because I realized this is something that I could do. And actually my family and we are fantastic cleaners. We go pretty hardcore, but it was just taking my fun, personal free time. I work so hard. I work 9 to 5 every day. Even though I work for myself, I still commit to that. And when I'm done, I want to, kind of recharge my batteries and be with my family. And so I realized a house cleaner was the way to do that. So yes, delegation, but I don't have to stand over her and tell her how to clean the oven. That's not something that she needs from me. She doesn't need micromanaging because it's a task that really anyone can do. She just happens to do it for a living. It's a lot different when you're talking about having a virtual assistant and having something that's part of your online business, because an online business is almost like your own little baby.
Oh, absolutely. You know what this reminds me of, and it's yet another thing you and I have in common, is we both came from the organizing world, professional organizers. And I remember making the distinction and having other people make the distinction between bringing in house cleaners, and again, love them. And I think that's such a wonderful thing to delegate, because even if you are good at what you do, even if you clean well, having them elevate your space and it energizes you to have that help. So this is definitely not bashing. This is saying there's a distinction between what they do. Exactly. And so a lot of people would say, okay, I'll bring in cleaners and they'll get me organized. And it's like, no,
that's just not how it works. In fact, my house cleaner, I have referred to her when I was a professional organizer. She got 20 houses from me because I would go in and set up systems and processes and be like, this is how you should put things away. And this is what we're going to do every time you have this item. This is how it's going to be processed in your home. And after that, yes, get a house cleaner. So, there always has to be a strategy before you can actually have more of a rote task going on.
Right. So today, let's talk a bit about the strategy behind hiring a VA. Well, let's talk about what a VA is to start, and then go through the confusion, the objections, and the concern, because a VA can be life-changing if we do it the right way. So let's please start with when you hear VA, what are we talking about here?
The simplest definition is an independent contractor that provides assistance to clients while operating outside of the client's office. That is the simplest definition. And we go back and we think of administrative assistants who work in offices, and that's usually a salaried position. They might be hourly, but they're still under a contract where that's their only job. They're in that office and they're your full-time support. A virtual assistant, some of them are only working with one business and do a very, more strict schedule of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, maybe a day off. But typically, these virtual assistants as independent contractors have multiple clients because they're good at balancing multiple different things at one time. And they're providing assistance where assistance is needed. And that isn't always a full-time sort of gig.
Right. And I want to make an important distinction here. And you mentioned it specifically, independent contractor. I think that's so important. One of the quickest things you can do is go to an official website that makes the distinction between employee and independent contractor. And the biggest thing about that is that they're not on your clock.
Correct.
Right? They're on their clock.
Yeah. I mean, our country, our states have so many different types of laws, especially when it comes to businesses. So it's really, really beneficial to you to get that guidance. I know here in Massachusetts, where I am, it is a lot of red tape. And in California as well, there's a very clear line between who is an employee and who is an independent contractor. So familiarizing yourself with those laws is very important.
Right. So the good news is, and why we're talking about this today, a VA and an independent contractors, this is one of the easiest ways you can start to get help.
Yes.
Because it could be, it can be in a variety of ways, and we'll talk about what those are. But it's simply that you can connect with someone and be like, okay, here's where I need help, and they can come in and help you. And you don't have to go through the employee red tape, but you do have to make sure that your relationship and your expectations match what that is.
Correct.
Okay, so let's talk about why we would hire one, shall we?
Yes. So I actually boil this down to the exact same reason I had to hire me when I was a professional organizer. And I know you're going to get this because you were one also, and you still work in this exact same, I want to say, mission. It's to create more space. You're creating more space. Now, obviously, when you're a professional organizer, you're creating physical space. Right? But I would tell my clients when I was a professional organizer, it's not just the physical space, it's the mental space. And that translates over, and why my business still operates under the same name of Simplify. I didn't change the name. It's because the space can be so many different things. It could be the time to do what you're best at. I like to say zone of genius. There is no reason, if you are a coach, right? You're a coach for women. Maybe you're an empowerment coach. There is no reason that you should be fighting your MailChimp when you are an empowerment coach. You have beautiful words. Every coach I know is an incredible copywriter. They can translate their ideas to the page impeccably. But there is no reason that means that they should be fighting the nuances of MailChimp. There's no reason. Stay in your zone of genius. And so the easiest reason of why we should hire one, that idea of creating more space, is stay in your zone of genius and do what you're best at. And that also frees up the space to add more joy to your life. If you're not fighting MailChimp for 4 hours to send one email that my team can get done in 15 minutes, you have more time to do the things that you love. Additionally, this could be more space in your budget, right? And so that's kind of sounding conflicting because you're like, well, I'm paying for a virtual assistant, but it frees up space in your budget because you actually make more money. You can focus on income producing activities when you're not fighting. I'm going to go with the MailChimp because everybody knows MailChimp. When you're not spending 4 hours fighting MailChimp.
It's like you've seen into my soul.
Well, I mean, I think of most of my clients who are coaches, and typically a typical coaching session is an hour. So if it's taking you 4 hours for MailChimp, that's 4 hours of billable time that you now have back in your life. And so that's actually increasing your budget. And now you have more money to invest back into the business and maybe get that coach that you have been eyeing that you really want to work with. Or maybe you're just taking your kids to Disney World because you finally made more money that you can afford Disney World, which, by the way, I feel like you both need the budget of like a billionaire and a PhD to understand how to work Disney World. This is a different conversation, but it's intense. It makes me sweat.
It's true.
So, space can be created in so many different ways. And it's also, again, the same thing I said when I was a professional organizer. It's that mindset. It's knowing you're being supported. Things are running smoothly. You're not jolting awake. Maybe this is just me. I jolt awake at 2:00 in the morning because I think I forgot something in my business that really needs to be handled. I stopped doing that when I expanded my own team and it wasn't just me. You're being supported, you're held, and the particles and the balls are not being dropped.
You have someone on your team.
I do.
Yeah. And that's a fantastic thing. That's a fantastic feeling.
Yes.
I know that I feel that way, being a coach, I feel that way having a coach, but it's the same thing too. And I'll tell you something else that I found to be a value with a VA is that design part, let's say, getting and this is something I hired you for actually, to create a workbook, right?
Yes.
It's not just, okay, that's maybe not my zone of genius. It actually, in a way, and this is such an important part of this whole zone of genius idea, that I would call my zone of excellence. I'm pretty darn good at that.
You can make beautiful images on Canva. You're really good at that.
But guess what? You're better, you're faster. And I was able to move on with the project that I was doing, with the resource that I was offering. And then the faster you're able to move on, the faster you're able to make the income, make the connections, make the relationships. And just by the way, as an FYI, while you're listening, this idea of the zone of genius comes from the book, The Big Leap.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so you want to check out that book, or at least check out references to it and the idea of the zone of genius, because that's not the only one references the zone of excellence, the zone of competence. There's more to it than that. But the idea is that you can have something that you're pretty darn good at, like I was just saying, and it can be a trap. It can be a trap because you're like, but I'm good at this, so why would I hire someone? Because there is bound to be someone better and faster, and you are paying to leverage that speed, that effectiveness, and that ability so that you can move on.
Exactly. Again, I can clean my house. I am a damn good cleaner. I brag that I am. I mean, you could eat off my kitchen floor, I promise. But it doesn't mean that, it's my privilege speaking. I have the means to have someone else help me with that. And it helps in a million different ways. And it's, again, that space.
Yeah. These are great reasons. And we probably know instinctively, it's like, oh, it may be time to grow. It may be time to ask for help. But what is it that you've seen that holds us back? What's the mindset? What are the myths? What are the objections that are happening?
So there's a few, I'd say, big myths about, I can't hire a virtual assistant right now, right? The biggest one is money, right? I don't have the money. I'm not big enough yet. My business isn't, I'm still a little bit in the red. I can't do this. You have to look past the money myth, and you have to look at it as an investment in the business. And this was actually something that was so hard for me when I started my business, because I was like, I actually can do all of these things. I can both go in and organize a person's house, and I can build the website. And I'll never forget when I was still an organizer, I was realizing my business was changing and I was moving towards technology. And I had just had my baby, who's 4.5 now. And I was like, this website is a mess. And it doesn't fully represent that not only do I do houses, but I also help people with technology. Because at the time I was kind of straddling that line, right? And I had a newborn that I was breastfeeding the whole time in between houses that I was organizing. And I was like, I can't even, by the time she's down and sleeping and I have time to work on the website, I am exhausted. And I don't have the mental space to do this. I hired a friend who is a website designer, and she designed my website. And now here I am. I am a website designer. That is one of my hugest income sources. We design probably 10 websites a year, my team and I. But I hired a web designer because at the time when my business was not quite solidified and I was dabbling in way too many different income sources and I wasn't niched down, I hired a website designer. Even though I had built websites before, and many of them, I hired a website designer. I had to look at it as an investment in my business because I knew that if people saw on my website that I wasn't just a house organizer, that I could make more money. But if I sat on that same website that just said professional organizing for so long, I wouldn't have gotten those clients.
Yeah. That was the same time that you hired me as well.
Yes. And speaking of niching down, you were the one who was like, well, I get that you love organizing houses, but you're also really good at that. And which is a whole other episode of the podcast. But yes, I hired you as my coach because I was exhausted and I had a baby and I had a business and I knew that it was going someplace, but it was one of those like you can't see the forest through the trees moments. And again, I hired somebody, I invested in you because I knew that you would help the business grow. So when you look at this money myth as more of an investment in your business, that's when the mindset shifts. So that's the biggest myth. And then there's another big myth. I feel like they're 50-50. And that one is the delegation myth. And it's this idea of, I'll just do it myself. I'll just do it myself. There is one issue with that. People say, I'll do it myself because nobody can do it as good as me.
Mm-hmm.
And I, to a degree, will agree with that. And that is because there are virtual assistants who are worker bees, and they're incredible. Okay. You need something done, they'll get it done in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Really incredible virtual assistants, little worker bees. But if you want a website done, I would not suggest going to a general VA who charges hourly, who is known for slashing that to-do list in minutes flat. They may be able to make you a website, and it's probably going to be beautiful because they specialize in technology. But there is a strategy to websites. There's a strategy to email marketing. There's a strategy to social media. And while anyone, not just a general VA, anyone can post something to Instagram, that doesn't make them an expert in Instagram. I'm sorry to tell you. So the first myth being money. The second myth is this idea of proper delegation. And, this kind of leads into like what kind of VAs are out there and how much do they cost and how do I know I'm getting the right VA? And that kind of opens up into a lot of different questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, at least I've definitely seen this, the aspect of perfectionism and wanting to do things just so. You mentioned that our businesses it's like having a baby.
Yes.
So you're very protective. So totally get that. But at some point, it's the idea of I'm maxed out. I've hit my limit. And I've done all I can. I've worked with Lisa. We've simplified. We've set up systems. We've automated. We've done all the things. But in order to get to the next phase, in order to grow, in order to maybe even not grow, it depends on what your goal is. But maybe the goal is in order to have more family time, which was the whole point of this business in the first place. What even happened here, right? And whatever that goal is, you're like, I need help. I need to ask for help. I need to get over this. But to your point, it's asking for the right help. I guess that sort of encompasses the question of, so when can we hire one? Or maybe it goes into like, what do we need to know in order to pick the right one? Because I think that may be the scary part, even if we know these things and we're like, yes, I'm ready, but how do I know? Help, Liz.
Excellent question. I mean, so when you ask the simple question of when can I hire a VA, your immediate answer, again, is going to be that money myth, because you're going to be like, well, I can't afford one right now. So that answers that question. And it does. I mean, it does. And it does. I'm like, I'm not telling you to go take out another line of credit just to get this VA who's going to solve all of your life problems. That's not, I'd love to say that that's what we do. And typically we have a pretty good track record, but it's not going to be a quick fix.
Right.
So when can you hire a VA? The answer really is whenever you feel like that money myth is not holding you back, because I'm recognizing that every business owner has a different set of circumstances with their budget. And I have a different circumstance than another entrepreneur who maybe really is completely unable to afford a VA right now. And that's fine. But if you feel like, okay, I could do this, it's going to kill me. It's kind of hurting me a little bit, but I can do it, then do it. Don't wait, because it really will come back tenfold. And that idea of money is one thing. But again, when you then think about, well, am I ready? And it's not a money issue. The only thing I can say to that is that there are so many little steps and secrets that I could give for doing this the right way and doing it right now. But it really boils down to one thing. If your virtual assistant is not also a strategist, you need to find one that is. And if you don't know where to find one, I have a pretty good idea. But at the very least, you should have had some excellent coaching with a business coach that gives you strategy. And this is why. Again, a general VA is a little worker bee, right? In a bee, they have one track mind, get the pollen and bring it back to the queen. Like that's the mentality, right? It's like a horse. It's like a racehorse on the track. I'm from Saratoga, so this is an excellent analogy. That horse has a one track mind, and that is to run when it is time. They're not thinking about the strategy. That's why they have the jockey.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a VA is going to take your to-do list and they're going to run with it. They're just going to run and they're going to tackle it and they're going to get it done. But they're not necessarily going to apply strategy to it.
Right.
When you're working with a VA, like my team, you start with strategy. So if you come to me and you're like, I'm so stressed out, I'm so overwhelmed, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing, and I just know that I need help, which is 99% of the people that come to me, I'm going to say, okay, take a deep breath. And now I need to know everything about your business. Because how in the hell is a virtual assistant going to help you if you come to them and say, I am so stressed out, I need help? Okay, what do you want me to do?
Right.
You have to have a plan. You have to have a strategy. So you can have a general VA later when it comes down to the implementation of the ideas. But there's this bridge in between the ideas and the implementation, and that's strategy. And that's where my business as a virtual assistant agency is slightly different than most virtual assistant agencies. So we're not going to plow headfirst into task completion. If we can, we will. If you have those little to-do lists that we can just slay a bunch of things, great, we'll do it. But those bigger things like email marketing, social media scheduling, which needs strategy, those are the things that we're going to take a little bit of time, and we're going to get to know your business, and we're going to know what are your goals? Where do you want your business to go? When are you going to be doing your program, or maybe you're doing a retreat? Like what's going on in your business that needs promotion? That's all strategy. And yeah, little tasks are part of that. If you're holding a retreat, you need somebody to go and call 5 different places to have your retreat. Fine. That's a task. But I can't just go and call 5 different retreat locations until you tell me what this retreat is going to look like and the goal of it. So it's working backwards design almost. Mm-hmm. If you are a teacher out there, you know what I'm talking about. I used to be a teacher and this was a big thing. And that goes back to, if you're a teacher, and I was a Spanish teacher for 10 years, if I want to teach a 6th grader how to, I don't know, write down buenos dias, that 6th grader is going to need to know what the letters sound like. So I should probably start with the alphabet. So it's working backwards. It's saying, what is the end goal and what's going to get me to that goal?
So it sounds to me like this understanding that strategy needs to be involved. This feels like the key to not only what we need to be looking for, but what has tripped us up before. Because I've known a lot of people who are like, I hired a VA and it didn't, it kind of helped, but not, yes, it made more work, or I felt more overwhelmed, or we didn't get done what I'd hoped to get done. Yeah. So this is like the key point of it. I will say that if you want some help and you want to get started, you could do little projects.
Exactly.
That is definitely a technique. But those are little projects where you're like, I do know that I need, for example, this workbook done. Great. You can start with that. And that's actually a wonderful way to get used to the idea of delegating, to practice.
Yes.
But I will agree that having that strategy and laying it out and having someone who understands that, and every coach that I've ever worked with has definitely been strong in that regard, because you need to understand not only what am I taking from your to-do list, but is this the right thing to do on your to-do list?
That's right. Exactly right. And, I'm bringing it back to my house cleaner. So at some point along the way, I realized that not only would it be helpful for my house to be cleaned once a month, it would also really be the biggest help if she put away my laundry. So she asked me, she was like, okay, does that mean that maybe one day I'll come and just keep the washing machine going? I'll just, do it, wash a load, dry a load, wash a load, dry a load. I was like, no, I can do that. Are you kidding me? Like, I can do that. That's the part of this I can do. It's the putting away that is an issue. And so what I did is she's Brazilian. She speaks Portuguese as her first language. I was like, I want to make this as easy for her as possible. I went into all the closets in this house. I labeled them in Portuguese and English with my little label maker. And I showed her exactly where to put everything. And she gets this done in, I want to say 45 minutes flat, when it would have taken me ages because I would have been distracted by my child, dinner, all these different things. And the reason I bring this up is, again, a virtual assistant could go and if you're like, go do the laundry, they're going to do it in the way that makes sense to them.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're not going to know where your shirts are. You're not going to be able to find anything because their organization is going to be different than your organization. And so my labeling of all these closets in my house made a process, a strategy for my house cleaner to follow. And so that's usually the missing link, is when you get a virtual assistant and it's not a great partnership and something goes wrong, you have to look at what was the missing link.
And that most certainly is. And when you're talking about the laundry, by the way, I use this as an example because I talk about this with regard to habits and tasks and what I call closing the task loop. And so the laundry, quote, being done is actually, you've gotten the dirty laundry, you've washed it, you've dried it, you've folded it, put it away or hung it up or whatever, but you put it away. That's the full task loop.
Full task loop.
And you being honest is like, I almost got there, except for that putting away part. But now you've delegated someone helping you close that task loop. So
exactly.
I love that. But again, I think our biggest hurdle here, besides this feeling of, can I even do this? When would I do this? Do I feel okay? That the myths behind it, that mindset, is actually, who am I asking to do this? And what do they need to know in order to help me the right way? Okay.
Yeah.
That feels like such a great place for us to kind of wrap up and send everyone on the way inspired. Do you have any other, like a step one that they should be doing, or some final thoughts to inspire taking this right approach to get help?
I tell everyone who first starts working with me to come to our first call after they've spent a week writing down every single little thing they've done that drives them insane. Just start there. For me, it would be putting away the laundry.
That's not a bad idea, actually, to so document the struggles.
And if nothing else, it's going to make you feel amazing to see how much you get done in a day.
That's a good point.
We are just pulled thin everywhere. We do so many things.
So you can see where the overwhelm is coming from.
Yep, exactly right.
All right. I love that. Okay. So that's step one, is document. And then I guess step two will be look for someone who understands the strategy of it all and can help you see the big picture and then figure out which parts of that picture they can take off your plate.
That's right. You got it.
Love it. Yay. Okay. Now, before we have our rapid wrap up, Liz, let us know where we can find you online so we can book a call with you and get some strategy going.
Yes. You can find me at simplify.me. And that exact thing is the same username that I use on Instagram and Facebook. So you can find me in all those places.
Okay. And I'll have that in the show notes as well. So you're ready for this rapid wrap up?
Yes, I love this part. This is fun.
Okay. Please fill in the blanks. The song that lifts my spirits, makes me dance.
Currently, as much as I am a classic rock fan, I'm almost ashamed to say this.
Do it.
About Damn Time by Lizzo. I spent
But
years.
It's so good.
It's so good. And I never listened to this as a kid. I listen to classic rock, but I'm telling you, pop lately, Lizzo, she's amazing.
Well, yeah. And it feels like a mantra for us, right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
I love it.
Well,
okay.
I love her.
Okay. How about a quote or a mantra that inspires me that I love to share?
I probably shared this on the two other, oh no, I didn't do a quote on the last one, but my first episode with you, I probably did the same one because this is the quote I go by 100% all the time. And again, it's so funny because I am not remotely interested in sports, and it's a quote by Wayne Gretzky.
Mm-hmm.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
It is so true.
I know. So simple.
I might not watch hockey, but I know that
don't watch any
Gretzky,
sports, and I'm like, oh, it's Wayne Gretzky who said that. Amazing.
but he knows it. It's
He
so
did.
true.
He figured it out.
He gets it. Okay. How about a resource, a book, an app, anything
You.
that
You're my walking, like, you're like the Library of Alexandria. I'm like, Lisa, I need a book that's going to do X, Y, Z. And you're like, oh, it's this one. Okay.
Oh, that's brilliant. Have really great coaches that can tell you, to that point, though, it's not that I know the things. I know where you can get the things.
Yes.
And that's important.
I love that about you.
That's brilliant. Thank you. All right. And last, but most definitely not least, what are you grateful for today, Liz?
Oh, God. So at the time of recording this, because I don't know when you're going to release this episode, at the time of recording, we're a few days into the Texas shooting at the Robb School. And I mean, the obvious is that I'm grateful for my little girl and that she's alive.
Yeah.
But to brag for a second, I'm grateful that it's innate in me to speak up about the causes that I care about. And if it's anything I will die on a hill of, it is speaking out about injustices in the world. And I do see what happened there as an injustice. And so I'm grateful that I speak up.
I am grateful for that too. I am grateful for you for so many reasons. I'm grateful for you as a guest today, of course, but I'm grateful for you as a biz bestie and as someone who does speak up on behalf of others, who gives them a voice and who helps people. You help so many people, even through your business, who are changing the world. They are change makers and you are supporting them. And I've been talking with so many people lately, especially clients who feel that struggle and they want to make a difference. And I'm like, but look who you're supporting.
Right.
So I would leave everyone with this idea that we cannot underestimate the ripple effect that we have, even in the smallest things that we do.
Find the helpers.
Yeah. And you have such an incredible ripple effect, Liz. So thank you. Thank you for being here today, for shining your light in this world, and for sharing it with us.
Right back at you. Love you.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.